Hey, what's up you guys? Merry Christmas! So today I wanted to do another little tag video. This one I kind of made. I don't know if it exists anywhere else on the internet, but I didn't feel like searching for one because I wanted to go through some of my favorite Christmas movies / Christmas movies that everyone really loves. This tag is going to be Christmas movies and books, so it's going to be pretty similar to what I did yesterday, which was Christmas songs and books. And so I'm just going to pick some books that will relate to some Christmas movies and hopefully you like it. So I picked out 10 Christmas movies, and if you want to do this tag, go ahead, do it. You can add on your own Christmas movies or whatever you want to do. I just picked out 10, so we'll get into it with the number 1, which is Die Hard. You want to pick a book that subverts expectations. I picked this one because I've never actually watched Die Hard. I just know a lot of people make the argument that it is a Christmas film, even though it's really like an action movie that just takes place during Christmas. So it subverts expectations for a Christmas movie. So a book that subverts your expectations. And so for this, I'm going to pick Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman. I did not expect this book to go where it went. This book was fantastic and I absolutely loved everything about it, especially the ending. And so this book, the end, I just never expected it to go there. Even if you told me that like what was gonna happen, I wouldn't have believed you. But this book, it goes there, man. It is so fantastic. I absolutely love this series. This is the second book in the Scythe trilogy, if you weren't aware. I've got book talks up for all of those books, so if you want to know more of my thoughts on those, you can check out those book talks. But this book, oh boy. Oh, and the Scythe series is about a world in which death has been cured. So the second one is Home Alone, a book where the main character learns off that they're better off alone. For this, I'm going to go with Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. This book follows a young girl who's dealing with her anxiety and her hypochondriacal tendencies. And so this book, she's really struggling with that. And so in this book, she's still dealing with that. And so she kind of learns throughout the book that being with someone isn't going to cure her of her issues. And so I just really love that. And I really love in books when that is kind of a message that is taught, because you should not expect anyone ever to fix your problems. Like, they're your problems. You need to figure out some way to fix them. So the next one is A Christmas Carol, and so this one has 3 parts to it. If you know the story of A Christmas Carol, there's Christmas Past, Christmas Present, and Christmas Future. And so for this, I wanted to pick a book that had the best beginning, the best middle, and the best end. So for the best beginning, I'm going to go with The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I absolutely love how this book begins. I love how exciting it is, and I love how action-packed it is, but at the same time, it doesn't detract from the actual storytelling. You don't get so much action that the plot gets overwhelmed by the action. And so I just love how this starts off. I love how funny it is. I love how witty it is. And I just love how gripping it is in the beginning. So definitely The Lightning Thief. That's what I'm going to go with there. Now the best middle for me, I'm going to go with A Reaper at the Gates by Sabaa Tahir. A good middle, I think, is really hard for a book to do, to stay gripping after that first initial interest. But Sabaa Tahir does a really good job in her books of picking up her stories in the middle and just building that intensity so that once you get to the climax, you know where all the cards lay and you are just so intensely worried for your characters. I just think that she does such a phenomenal job with that. And all of the An Ember in the Ashes series, I would say the middle of the books is really where the book starts to shine for me, because these middles keep me turning pages. They are what keep me invested in the story. And so that is what I would pick for the middle. And the best end, I'm going to go with Kingdom of Ash. Oh my goodness, did this book end so well for me. It was so epic in scale. I absolutely loved how Sarah J. Maas did this entire series, how it started off so differently from where it ends. This book, it broke my soul in every single way that counts. The end of this series, I cannot recommend it enough because it is so worth it. It is such a great payoff. It feels so earned, and I loved it, and it just breaks my heart every time. So that's what I'm picking for that. And if you don't know what any of these books are about, The Lightning Thief, you should probably know. A Reaper at the Gates is the 3rd book in the An Ember in the Ashes series, and so that book is about a girl who winds up spying on a military academy in a fantasy world. And then Throne of Glass is about an assassin who joins a competition to become the king's champion. Also fantasy. So the fourth one is Elf, a character who gets thrown into an unknown world. So for this, I'm going to pick Karoo from the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy. Karoo definitely gets thrown into an unknown world in this series. She is such an interesting character. I absolutely loved this series. She winds up meeting someone who throws her back into what is actually her past, but she's not aware of that. I don't remember if that's a spoiler. She just gets thrown into this world. She doesn't understand what is going on, but she slowly learns and she slowly develops so well. And I love this series. I really want to do a reread next year, so hopefully I'll be able to do that. But this series, it is about a girl who lives in Prague, I believe, and she winds up meeting an angel. And so from there, a little bit of a love story ensues. But this story, it just goes in so many different directions. I did not expect it to go where it went. It is a fantasy novel. Like, it isn't, I wouldn't, like, it's kind of urban fantasy, but it is also kind of high fantasy. It really draws the line for me between the two of them, because the last book is not really in this world at all, but the first book is pretty much in this world. So it does kind of change as the series goes on, but it is a great series, so I definitely recommend it. And if you're someone who isn't super into fantasy, I might recommend picking this up, because it is a good introduction into getting into high fantasy, because you start to learn more about other worlds and other histories. So it starts to kind of open your mind up to things like that. So the next one is the Santa Claus, a character who develops in unexpected ways. If you don't know what the Santa Claus is about, it is about a guy who winds up killing Santa and becoming Santa. Danny Gonzalez, I don't know if y'all know him, but he's another YouTuber. He has a great video on the Santa Claus movie and how ridiculous it is, so I highly recommend watching that, because I just think it's funny. So anyways, so for this, I'm going to go with Aiden from the Illuminae series. Aiden is the AI in this series, and he is interesting to say the least. He is probably one of my favorite aspects of this story. He is so different, and I love how creepy he is, and I love how he tells the story whenever it's one of his segments, because oh boy, is he just, the way that he just says things, it just makes me uncomfortable. And I think that he develops in really unexpected ways, because you start to see how he is trying to help humanity, and you start to see how he is justifying his actions, and it just hurts, because he's just trying to save people, you know, like, he's not trying to be evil, but he winds up being a little bit evil. So he's just such a gray character, and I love it. So the next one is Rudolph the Rednose Reindeer, and so this is a book with a Mean Girls type of a clique. So Rudolph, we all know, he gets bullied by what I would term the Mean Girl clique in his story, which is all the other reindeers. So I wanted to pick a book that has this similar style thing. And so for this, I'm going to go with Finding Aubrey by Sophie Kinsella. They aren't really a big portion of the book, but the Mean Girls are kind of what led Aubrey to be so socially anxious, was just some trauma that she had experienced with being bullied. And so I love how this book takes a look at how bullying can really affect someone in that way. That's where the Mean Girls kind of come in with this book. This book is about a girl with social anxiety who is too afraid to leave her house or do anything, but she winds up meeting a boy, and he kind of pushes her to do a little bit more outside the house. So this book, such a fun story, and as I said, I really love how it incorporates the fact that she was bullied as to why she is the way that she is, because that is a very traumatic experience. So the next one is Charlie Brown Christmas. So this is a classic with iconic characters. So Charlie Brown, I consider a classic movie, okay? I know it's not like the most classic of movies, but like, I consider it that, and all of the characters are so iconic. So for this, I'm gonna go with Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. The characters in this, I feel like, are so iconic. So many people know about Joe, Amy, Beth, and Meg. They can see themselves in these characters, and they are all so different, but also so similar. And I just love this story and for how it represents family. And I think that it is just such a fun story to really wrap your mind around for a little bit and just spend some time with Jo, because she is so relatable to me. And honestly, the movie that came out this past year was fantastic. I've never liked Amy in any of the adaptations that I've seen or in this book. I just thought that she was always so mean, and I didn't like how petty she was. But in the movie that came out this past year, I actually started to like Amy a lot more, and I started to kind of see myself in her a lot more too. So I definitely recommend this book as well as the movie. I think that the characters are just so iconic. So the next one is A Nightmare Before Christmas. So this is just a creepy book. And for this, I'm going to go with the only horror that I've ever really read, which is 172 Hours by Johann Harstad. I did not really like this book, if I'm being honest, but this was the first ever horror I've read, so I don't know if it's actually just not a great book or if I just didn't like the horror, because I was not expecting it to be a horror. I did not know that was what it was going into it, so being really confused with the ending was kind of a given for me. But this book is about a group of kids who get the opportunity to go to the moon, and it winds up going in unexpected directions. I think that this book was really creepy. It made me kind of uncomfortable in certain moments, and it left me really creeped out because it kind of didn't finish. I felt so unfinished with this book. I felt like I wanted more. I felt like I didn't know what happened. I felt like the world was gonna explode because I don't know where this was gonna go. So the next one is Klaus, a character with a dynamic backstory. So Klaus is a recent movie that came out on Netflix where it kind of depicts Santa Claus's backstory, and so that's kind of why I said a character with a dynamic backstory. And so for this, I'm going to go with Casbrecker from Six of Crows. Every character in this book honestly has such a dynamic backstory, and I love how we are told their backstories in this book. It's not something that you're just given right away. It's not even something that you're given when it's first mentioned. It's something for you to be wondering about throughout the book until eventually you get it at a moment where maybe the plot isn't as heavy as it would be in other spots. So the backstory is really used as a way to keep you intrigued when the story might not necessarily be there in that moment, and I absolutely loved that. And Kaz's backstory especially I thought was just so heartbreaking, and I absolutely loved Kaz's character, and I just felt so bad for him when I learned about why he was the way he was, and I felt bad about many of the characters in this book for finding out why they were the way they were, honestly. Highly recommend this series if you haven't read it. This is a heist book, a fantasy book. That's really all you need to know. Go pick it up. The next prompt, which is the last one, which is The Grinch, the all-time best character development. The Grinch is my favorite Christmas movie, so that's why I left this one for the last, but the all-time best character development, one would be Evelyn Hugo from The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but since I mentioned that in my video yesterday, I don't want to go into too much detail with that. So the all-time best character development outside of her, I would have to say is, I know that I already mentioned this series earlier in this video, but I'm going to go with Selena from Throne of Glass. Throughout the entire series, she grows and develops in so many different ways and in so many unexpected ways. She honestly was just such a great character, and she really carried this series in so many ways. And you really start to see how the friendships that she develops really play a key role in her overall success in this series. I loved her character development, and I loved how she grew to kind of accept who she was and to be able to use that to her advantage, and I just loved it. She was such a great character. She was such a badass. I thought that it was just such a great series. I highly, highly, highly recommend. So that is the final prompt for this tag. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, comment, all of those things. Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye!